Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Travel Insights. Today, we have with us a young and dynamic technology visionary who is the CEO of a company named MeTripping, and that's Varun Gupta. Varun has founded MeTripping in the year 2016, and as a company, MeTripping is building an intelligent travel technology stack to power travel search. They use billions of data points from various sources to rank destinations, flights, hotels, and activities, and to present to the user what they claim to be the world's first contextual inspiration engine for travel and vacation planning, along with intelligent and dynamic single city and multi-city packages. So effectively, what their system does is suggest to you what would be an ideal vacation or a place to stay, or which are the best flights to take, or a combination of everything based on rankings which are worked out on the basis of these billions of data points which they access. Besides this consumer platform of theirs, MeTripping is also powering intelligent travel search for some of the larger names in the travel industry, like Akbar Holidays, Thomas Cook and SOTC, GRN Connect, Savari, Travel Yari, and others. They are also currently building an application for standalone travel agents. It's like a plug-and-play application, so that it assists them in travel and vacation planning and budgeting. Prior to MeTripping, from the year 2014 to 2016, Varun was the head of corporate strategy, IT, and hospitality services at Trans-Maldivian Airways, the world's largest seaplane company based in the Maldives. Varun is an MBA from Harvard Business School and is also a qualified chartered accountant. So welcome, Varun. Pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Amish. Thanks a lot.
So Varun, just getting straight into it.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in the travel business, and how you came into the technology part in the travel business?
Sure. So the entire tryst with travel and technology actually happened quite accidentally. Before MeTripping, as you mentioned, I was working in the Maldives, so a tourist destination. I possibly am one of the very few people in the world who have the distinction of working both in Goa and in Maldives, and not in the travel sector, entirely in Goa. It just so happened that because I lived in a tourist destination, people gave me the benefit of doubt and assumed I am a travel expert as well, which was completely not true. But that gave me some key insights into how a lot of people actually make decisions, how people think about travel, how people want to decide where they go, what they do there, how they get there, and where they stay, right? So all of these components are sort of tightly interlinked. They tend to be separate decisions because of, I think, the way the industry is structured. And that's actually how we came to the technology part of it. So when people ask me for recommendations, what I soon realized was that constraints help most of these travelers make their decisions, including me, by the way, make decisions more than our desires. Because our desires can be endless, but constraints are very real, right? How much time do I have? How much money do I have? And I think that's something that was both a key, an obvious insight, but also fairly nuanced. Right, so you can sort of wish it away and say, okay, yeah, of course, budget is an issue. But I think budget actually goes to fundamentally deciding how we make a lot of the hard decisions in life. The technology aspect, of course, is travel's been online for maybe about 20 years now or more. It's in a way been the leader in technology adoption. What that has led to is over verticalization, in our opinion. Everyone had to address one problem, so they took up one problem, tried to do a good job of it, and I think those were the right calls at that point. What's happened now as a consequence is there are possibly hundreds of data sources for anything that you would want to do, right? You want to read up on a city, there'd probably be 100 or few thousand blogs. You want to see videos, there could be a few hundred or thousand of those as well. And the same applies to flights, hotels, etc., right? So everything downstream also has multiple. Now, human comprehension cannot take care of all of this data, and that's where technology comes in. If you have that much data, the only way to effectively fight it is by having tools that can actually address both looking at the data and then understanding the data. So that's essentially how we decided to build MeTripping, and said it has to be a pure play tech platform, a pure play tech and data science way of looking at data and understanding data, and that's what we're presenting as intelligent travel search.
What are the trends that you have seen in travel technology, say since 2016 when you started, and how has travel technology evolved in terms? I mean, we know that it's a constantly evolving thing, but how has it moved in these last 4 years that you have been running MeTripping?
Sure, interesting question. I'm not sure if I have a very strong view on these 4 years itself. I think, and that's probably coming from how I've observed the travel industry. I think it's technologically advanced yet sluggish, right? So it was one of the first adopters. A lot of it went online, but I don't necessarily think there are great tech evangelists in the travel space, right? So there is the adoption in general has been very slow. If you look at the platforms that let's say a B2C consumer uses, right? Most of the platforms that we use today are the same platforms that were probably there 10 years back, right? Which means in 10 years, there's been no real change in the B2C way of consuming travel. If you look at B2B, largely that also remains the same. The big names that were there 10 years back are still the big names today. There are some changes in that, I guess, ranking order, if you can call it that, in Europe and the US, in North America in general. But especially in a country like India, that's almost completely absent, right? I guess maybe I could divide this into two parts. There's a supply side problem and there's a demand side problem, right? So on the supply side, having been in this industry now for 4 odd years, I've seen a variety of software systems to help different parts of the travel ecosystem. It could start from anywhere from the transactional aspects to the CRM aspect to anything operational, right? And if you look at it, the user experience is by and large really bad. I think people make do with those kind of softwares because there is no alternative. But there is also that demand problem which sort of feeds into this and creates a vicious cycle, which is from what I have observed, people aren't very willing to pay for technology. Now, if you don't pay people who are creating great technology, then you have not really great technology being built. And so you have to settle for subpar. I think somewhere down the line, I mean, if I have to be flippant about it, maybe the entire industry is waiting for a large VC investor to come and pump in money, create great products, and then give out free or cheap products to the rest of the industry. That's one way things could go. Or maybe you start a slow incremental change of how people can actually start paying a little bit more for technology such that better products can come out. Whether they come out from India or they come out from the world is a separate question, but at least better products can then come out.
So, you mentioned B2B travel technology. Now, what we know of the business is that the business is basically, you can say, there are two types of agents in the business. One are the very large, the multinational, the TMCs. Yes, they already are tech savvy, they have their tech teams and they understand technology. But the single location agent, he's not really tech savvy, but he wants technology. So is there somewhere where you can bridge that gap, where you can explain to that particular single location user what is the best product for him? Because today everyone wants to set up and become an OTA. I don't think that's the right approach. So is there something which you can mentor them or guide them and tell them this is what you as a single location agent require?
So I mean, again, also very valid point, and I think this also goes back into the demand side problem, which is very often there's not a strong hypothesis from, and this by the way is true of large and small companies in our experience, of what it is that will lead to a paradigm change in the way they operate. Right? Typically it's small incremental changes and hence just sort of, I would say again, subpar quality of software, which leads to small incremental changes. If you had someone coming up with strong conviction saying, I know this is where the world is heading, and this is how I need to change my business. And again, we read about this all the time, right? In classic disruption theory, that if you don't disrupt your business, somebody else will. But at the same time, we almost don't see this happening across the board, right? Large or small. Equally now we are, in fact, it just so happens that by the end of next month, we are creating almost a Shopify kind of platform, except with the added benefit that the products, everything that is needed is preloaded into the system. So it's literally a few clicks and you have a site up and ready.
So now tell me, this product which you're talking about, are you going to be selling it as a product or is it like on a SaaS kind of model?
So it's a license model. So it's very much like a SaaS model. There is some amount of upfront fee, and then there will be a monthly or quarterly payment. We're just finalizing those aspects as we speak. We will actually be rolling out a pre-launch offer by the end of this month as well. But yeah, I mean, the idea is to keep the entire process as frictionless as possible. What we've realized again is that if we don't productize it, you will never be able to scale this. So we need to productize it to a level saying, okay, we've heard enough feedback, and I've had several interactions with you also in the past about it. So we've taken enough feedback. We understand what most people might need, and that is what it means. It's most people might want it. Everybody might want another 2 or 5 things more, but that's a separate piece, right? So you, again, if you want that enhancement done, then that's a separate conversation.
You can always
do that. Right. But the product is what it is. It has a fixed price. It works a standard way, and sort of you don't have any headaches to go through to get to that point. All right. So that's what we are hoping to launch by 31st July.
Now you use, like you say, a lot of billions of data points to rank the various destinations, etc., on various attributes. How does this whole ranking system work? How does it work? I'm not too sure. If you can just explain that.
Sure. So the biggest sort of difference, as I mentioned earlier, in the approach is we are trying to combine the psychological elements of how humans make decisions with what we call non-transactional information. So that's anything from reviews to weather to visa to now health and safety, and I'll get into more on that as well, with the transactional aspect, right? So we have again algorithms which are about 15 to 17 different algorithms. There is no one algorithm applied to the entire thing and said, okay, magically everything's created. We're trying to understand every piece. So we have a destination ranking algorithm, we have flights ranking, hotel ranking, activities ranking. Within each of these, there might be 3 or 4 sub-algorithms. There's flight price prediction, hotel price prediction, etc. So there's a bunch of IP that we've developed in these 4 years to get us to where we are. And that's literally the billions of data points, right? So there are, we were actually doing a count sometime last month, and we're dealing with 100 terabytes of data. I would doubt there are too many startups of our vintage which are actually working on that much data, right? So, and obviously the more complicated problem is you use that data, create one. If it was one sort of uniform piece of data, then you would build one algorithm, understand it, and use it for whatever you might want to. But this 100 terabytes is split across multiple different aspects, right? There is the content alone, the static content for destinations. There is the dynamic content. Understanding and creating algorithms for each of them is an entire sort of, I think what we have done is we've essentially got 10 companies within ourselves, right? There is, I'm sure you've heard of Hopper, which does only flight price prediction. That's their calling card, and they are close to being a unicorn. Just by doing flight price prediction, that's one of the things that we do. And we do another maybe 15 of these things, right? So the way we thought that the problem could really be solved is by approaching it on all of these fronts. Right? Again, if we solve for one problem, then we get just one more site the person needs to visit, as opposed to saying, if we can solve all these problems, then this is the site that you visit all the time, right? So this is a platform you use all the time. So that's I guess the difference in how we approached data itself.
Technology, of course, like you said, has been around in the travel industry for more than 20 years, and probably travel adopted it the fastest. But going ahead, do you think intelligent travel is the way forward?
Well, we sure hope so. We've put everything on the line for that. But it's also, I think, something that I think is the final frontier. Digitization, as we've discussed, has been happening for a long time, will probably continue on for, as long as there's some person creating some more inventory, somebody will be there to digitize it. But I think creating sense of all of that information at scale is something which is not as easy to do. Neither is it something that like anyone can attempt, right? You literally need to give up a few years of your life to even attempt it meaningfully. So I think intelligent travel search, as I said, one is creating an experience for the consumer, and maybe translating the same experience and educating, in fact, an agent who has 2 years of experience or 5 years experience. So I guess where I'm coming from is fundamentally we don't believe in destination experts, right? So there is, I think, maybe a majority of the travel industry which believes in having destination experts of some kind, whether you look at DMCs in general or you look at even these standalone freelancers who call themselves destination experts. We think the power of the millions who are actually reviewing every facet of the destination, right, is far more than any one human or even one company could have, right? Even if they're observing it daily, because the reviewers are actually observing it every second, right? So you possibly can't compare the two, and if you can't have destination experts for every industry, then you have to find a different method of doing things, right? So and that's essentially what intelligent search is. Otherwise, it's what DMCs or anyone else does is curated search, right? So they say this is best for you because it could be for various reasons. It could be generally what's great. It could be because of commissions. It could be because of whatever price points that they were, some friendships that they've struck, right? I mean, again, there was a time and place to do that. I think given the nature of data, the extent of the data that's there now, which honestly wasn't present even 10 years back or even 6-7 years back, right? So in that sense, this is the time that when you have volume of information that's enough to say you need something far more superior to a team of humans sitting and saying, hey, I've got you covered on all fronts, right? It's not possible. I think humans can augment what technology has to offer, but your baseline essentially has to be through technology. So yeah, to answer your question, I think that intelligent travel search will become that baseline, and on top of that could be the layering of one, maybe the comfort factor that an agency or agent brings in, and or maybe specialized information which is more live, right? Which is not maybe something that's captured by systems that are running at authority. But even that would probably change. And yeah, absolutely. So over time, I think that any human piece to that can and probably should be an add-on, so that the travelers are getting the best kind of output that they were looking for.
That's right. Okay, now coming to, say, the current situation, we're talking the COVID-19 pandemic time. Do you think that going ahead, because of this, again, technology will play an important role? And have you in your product built up some kind of one of the attributes being the safety, security, and health facilities available at a particular destination? Does that form a part of the attributes which you search for while suggesting a destination?
Right. Yeah, so looking at it holistically, I think there will be two very strong aspects of it. One is which is pre-travel, which is more of an informative way, right? That can help towards reducing overcrowding, reducing contagion to some extent. And I think that's the role the technology will have to play. There is maybe another level which is at the operator level, right? So at a hotel level or an airline level, where again they could have some influence of technology to make sure that contact is minimized, at least unnecessary contact is minimized, right? But I think there will be a far more sort of physical play to this, right? Which is hotel chains, airlines, etc. Actually taking steps to make sure that contagion is reduced, right? Because at some level you cannot reduce overcrowding, maybe to some extent. I mean, there are still that many people which were there 3 months back, so people haven't reduced. So either you reduce travel or you find ways to manage that. And I think that's where, if travel industry has to get back on its feet, the last level, which is the operator, will have to find ways to manage it. So I think technology will have a role, a limited role, an informative role, and to some extent maybe an augmentation. But I think a lot of the real work will have to be done by the operators themselves. As for us, we've done our part for now to create the informative role. We've created, in fact, our own travel safety index, which is also available as an API or a widget for anyone else who wants to install it. But the idea behind that is twofold. One is they're giving, in some sense, a live commentary on what's happening with the destination. So our site, TSI, effectively fetches data every day on how COVID is spreading across different parts of the world, and pretty much all parts of the world. We use that to rank destinations again. We influence destinations and quite substantially sometimes the ranking of destinations based on the impact of COVID on those destinations. Secondly, we don't think health and safety is sort of now going to be a one-off. I think it's going to be a permanent fixture of how we live or how we think about things. Now, given that, we've also added in some other pieces like pollution, right? That's for many people, that's a big deciding factor, saying, hey, I don't want to go to this place, which is, let's say, I don't want to go to Delhi in October, November, right? I'll probably suffocate there. So that's one aspect we've added. We've added in the general healthcare facilities, right? The skill of the staff. And again, these are from partners who've been doing this for many years, but now we're helping surface that through our entire sort of core that we've created around it, saying, if this is the impact of COVID, this is the AQI, this is the general health standards in that destination, how does all of that combine up and roll up into influencing your decision on where you should go?
Oh, that's nice. So, I mean, basically the search also takes that into account in terms of what is the safety and health aspect. So Varun, thank you so much. Any parting comments, anything that you would like to tell us, anything breaking news from your end?
I guess from our standpoint, I think we are looking at how the industry will develop over these next few months. I think it's a critical time for the industry. Very weirdly, in India at least, there's been no support from the government so far. I just read about a thing in today's newspaper, yesterday's newspaper. Some countries have taken big steps to help with that. So I think it's a critical time. We'll see what happens. We're doing our bit, including helping, as we discussed right at the start, helping travel agents of all sizes maybe up their game to some extent, whatever role we can play in that. And so I think the next big launch from us is this travel Shopified.
Great. Thank you so much, Varun. Thank you for being with us today, and look forward to meeting up with you once all this is over. And for all our viewers, we hope you enjoyed this show. And if you did, please don't forget to click on like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.